You know what's strange? Some people spend their entire lives being misread. Not because they are complicated. Not because they are difficult. But because the way their mind works simply doesn't fit the version of normal that most people around them have agreed to accept. And if you've ever felt constantly misunderstood, by friends, by family, by people who claim to know you well, there's a psychological reason for that. And it has nothing to do with you being too much. Or not enough. Researchers who study personality structure have consistently identified a small subset of people, estimated at fewer than 1 in 10, whose psychological makeup operates genuinely outside the statistical norm. Not better. Not worse. But measurably different in the way they process emotion, connect with others, and experience the world around them. Here are 10 signs that you may have one of these rare personality types, and that the people in your life have simply never had the framework to understand what they were actually seeing. The first sign is that your silence is consistently misread as coldness. You don't fill space with noise. When you have nothing meaningful to say, you say nothing. That quiet comes from depth, not distance. But most people read it as disapproval. Research on introverted cognitive styles consistently shows that people who default to silence are rated as unfriendly by strangers, despite being among the most loyal and deeply caring individuals in any group. The second sign is that you feel emotions more intensely than the people around you seem to. Not just your own, other people's too. Psychologist Elaine Aron found that roughly 15 to 20% of the population has a nervous system that processes emotional information at a significantly deeper level. For you, a harsh tone in a conversation isn't just uncomfortable. It registers throughout your entire body long after the moment has passed. The third sign is that you need your relationships to mean something. Shallow connections don't just feel boring, they feel like a drain. You can be surrounded by people and feel completely alone if nothing goes past the surface. This isn't pickiness. It's a psychological orientation toward depth that researchers associate with high emotional intelligence. You aren't antisocial. You are simply unwilling to pretend that small talk is the same as real human connection. The fourth sign is that injustice affects you personally, even when it has nothing to do with you. When you witness something unfair, toward a stranger, a colleague, someone in a story, your emotional response is immediate. Carl Jung described this as moral sensitivity, a defining characteristic of certain personality types wired to experience ethical violations as disturbances to their own internal world. Most people notice injustice. People like you cannot simply move past it. The fifth sign is that you process experiences long after they have ended. A conversation from last Tuesday. A look someone gave you that you still can't decode. A decision you made months ago that you keep quietly turning over. Psychologists call this reflective depth, an unusually thorough internal processing system that doesn't release an experience until it has been fully understood. The difficulty is that full understanding sometimes takes far longer than life allows. Here's something worth sitting with for a moment. Everything we've covered so far, the silence, the sensitivity, the need for depth, the moral awareness, the processing, none of it is a flaw. It is a coherent psychological profile. One that tends to be misread precisely because it operates so differently from what most people around you experience as normal. The sixth sign is that you hold yourself to unusually high standards, for your work, your choices, and quietly, for the people you allow close to you. Not because you're judgmental. Because you're deeply aware of what things could be at their best. This is frequently misread as arrogance, when it reflects something simpler, a mind that has always been able to clearly see the gap between what is and what could be. The seventh sign is that your loyalty runs deeper than most people know what to do with. When you commit to someone, you commit fully. You show up. You remember. You care in ways that many people in your life have never encountered before. And because that level of devotion is unfamiliar, some have misread it as neediness, or taken it for granted, or simply not known what to do with something that genuine. The eighth sign is that you have a rich inner world that very few people ever access. There is a version of you that exists entirely in your own mind, full of questions, observations, and a running commentary on everything you experience. Most people who know you casually have no idea this world exists. And at some point, you mostly stop trying to share it, because what's inside rarely survives the translation into words. The ninth sign is that you find many environments overstimulating in ways that are difficult to explain. Not just loud spaces. Spaces where the energy is chaotic, expectations are unclear, or you're required to be constantly available and responsive. Your nervous system is finely calibrated. It picks up more than most people's does. Which means genuine recovery time, quiet, undemanding, restorative time, isn't a luxury. It's a neurological necessity. And the 10th sign is that you have always known, on some quiet level, that you were different. Not in the way everyone feels different as teenagers, but in a more persistent, more private way. A sense that you were operating on a frequency most people around you couldn't hear. And that, as isolating as that has sometimes been, you would not trade the depth of your experience for an easier, shallower life. Here is what psychology tells us about people who match this profile. They are not broken. They are not too much. They are not the problem in every room they have ever felt out of place in. They are rare. And rare things are frequently misread by people who have never encountered them. The traits that have made your life harder to navigate are the exact same traits that make your presence in the world genuinely irreplaceable. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to stop misunderstanding yourself.